Today on Chris Dyer's Creative Friends.
I like to just live life and get inspired naturally. So if I have an artist block, it tends to be because there's too much output and not enough input. And so there's a part of me where it's like, yeah, just live life and like get naturally re-inspired. What I love about art is it's hard to follow a certain formula. And every artist that I'm really inspired by has kind of blazed their own trail. And so there's like this really sweet combination of things that have never been combined because it hasn't been done by you or me or any other artist. There's like a unique mashup of all of our life experiences and interests. And I would say if you're an artist, like tune into your unique combination.
Miles, woo! Thanks for having me over your beautiful studio here at the Nail Factory. Tell me a little bit about this place.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, hell yeah. It's an honor. It's inspiring. It's beautiful out here in Grass Valley. So what is this place? You've been here for 8 years, you were telling me?
Yeah, 8 years. It was literally an old nail factory back in the day. It was like one of the first buildings out in this part of Nevada City. And they were super loud, making nails out in the middle of nowhere. And then like houses started popping up around it and it became more residential, but this is like the only commercial building in this whole zoning area. And then it turned into a window and door factory. And then like about 9 years ago, a bunch of artists from the Bay who couldn't afford living over there and wanted a new chapter of life, they invested in this space, the nail factory, and transformed it from what was like making windows and doors into these like parceled out artist studio spaces. So yeah, there's like maybe 30 studio spaces here.
Wow.
Some big and like, you know, high ceiling warehouses, some like smaller little nooks.
Yeah. Lots of burners.
Yeah, lots of burners. Everyone's getting ready for Burning Man right now. You know, we're customizing our bikes and there's like an art car that's getting built outside. So
Are you going?
we're going, yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you go to Burning Man much?
I've been once properly, twice for the Renegade burns.
Okay.
Maggie and I got engaged out at one of the Renegade burns, so there's a soft spot in our heart for it, and we've been wanting to go back and like celebrate that. But we're moving this month, and we were like, there's no way that we can pack up our life, move out of state, like set up shop somewhere else and go to Burning Man. But then we figured out like we can rent a pod, and the pod gets dropped off. It's like a shipping container. And then at a certain point they're in transit, and I think the transit time is like 10 days. So we're like, fuck it, let's line that up.
Wow, you're doing it all. Sounds stressful.
But I mean, once our shit's packed up, it's like out of sight, out of mind. There's literally nothing we can do for the move. So it's sort of like a going away send off.
I did the same when I moved from Canada and Denver to Florida. I just had to wait for different trucks. Sometimes I was out of town and the truck would arrive and tell my neighbor, like, can you make sure they put the things inside?
It's my life there, like.
Yeah, totally. Well,
keep an eye out.
I'm so happy we captured this beautiful studio before you pack it up and move out of state. What's the importance of having a studio like this with all the toys and art materials and space? And, you know, why should artists have invested into studio spaces?
Yeah, it's like an extension of my brain. It's like a way to externalize my thoughts and not have to keep it all inside. And it just makes the creative process so much more smooth and enjoyable for me. I'm not that into human design, but someone read my chart and was like, oh, you're a dry kitchen. Like that's the environment that you thrive in.
A dry kitchen?
Yeah, it was the first time I had heard that, and I was like, yeah, what's that? And they're like, basically it's a creative place. Like kitchens are where you make things. It's where you're creative and like have this process, but a dry kitchen is where it's almost like this really well organized environment that is like built around production. So I've started seeing the studios like my dry kitchen. It's like I go in there and it's set up for success for creativity.
Yeah.
versus like a wet kitchen. I guess that's the alternative in human design, but that's more about like the sake of like exploring creativity. So New York is like a wet kitchen where, and it relates somewhat to climate as well, but
Okay.
you can create your microclimate in your studio. But a wet kitchen is where things are messy, and the biggest shelf in the studio would be the floor, and there's just piles of stuff, and you're kind of in there more for like
It's
the
full of
sake
disease. It's like a wet market.
I mean, some people thrive in it too, but yeah, maybe it's,
Comparable in the metaphor. Wow, so interesting. I've never heard about that.
Yeah.
And I certainly been to studios where people just got garbage everywhere, but that's the manure that they gotta get into to create a beautiful lotus flower. You're more like organized and clean. It's like shit better be in its place before I do something beautiful and intricate and centered.
Yeah. Like when I'm painting, I just want to be able to reach with my arm for something and know where that is. And so I love having like everything in the studio has its home. And yeah, I can just reach for it and be like, all right, I don't skip a beat. I'm like back to painting. But if it's a clusterfuck and I'm just tripping over things, then yeah, all of a sudden I like lose that creative spark, and I like, yeah. There's a window for me. I have to like ride that wave of creativity. Otherwise it's like, it feels sludgy, and like I have to just gain the inspiration back.
Do you ever like have paintings that die before they happen because you got too sludgy? Or do you ever always push on through? It's like, I'm gonna make this painting finished one way or another.
I'm pretty determined. I've had a few that have slipped through the cracks, but yeah, there's like not enough time in this life to fulfill every creative desire, at least for me. You're super prolific. Just looking at your book, I'm like, you've lived 10 lives, just the amount of paintings you've made. But
I feel like I don't get to do 50% of the things I like to do.
Yeah, right. So I've got those, in my mental catalog, or quick thumbnail sketches that are, in sketchbooks or on, scrap pieces of paper in my desk that I'm like, okay, one day I will get to this.
Luckily, you're young. We're young, I must say, and hopefully we'll have time to do 80% of the things we want to do in our lifetime. Do you think you're going to miss this spot now that you're moving to Washington, correct?
Yeah.
Do you got a studio planned out there, or just going to explore once you're there?
We just bought a house, and there's a 2-car garage.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Nice.
Yeah, it feels like a scary but fulfilling step. And the space is not quite the same. It's a 2-car garage, detached from the house, which I like a little separation from work and home life. But it's kind of a shell right now, so I'm stoked to be able to customize like where the windows go and
more windows.
Yeah, more windows, better ventilation. There's going to be some pros that I don't have here, but this space has been so special, and like the creative community at the nail factory has been amazing.
Yeah.
Just effortlessly connecting with other artists and chopping it up and having critiques and being able to bounce ideas off of, and that I think I'm going to miss the most.
Right. At the same time, you're in the middle of nature out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. While at the same time, 15 minutes away from Grass Valley and Nevada City.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is that place been for you? You lived out here like a few years, 7, 8 years, right?
Yeah, 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah. This has been my rock at the nail factory, but the town is amazing.
Yeah, there's a good art scene and a lot of great talented people out here.
Yeah, it's tiny. Like, I think Nevada City is like 3,000 or 4,000 people, and Grass Valley is maybe like, I don't know, less than 15,000.
Okay.
So it's tiny, but it's potent.
Yeah.
It feels like there's a lot of creative energy and, connected to the whole cannabis industry. Wherever there's marijuana, there's creativity.
Lots of hippies.
Lots of hippies and more money to support the arts too. So that's changing a little bit with the industry going legal and it being less profitable for some people. So we'll see how that affects the area, but it's kept a lot of the creative spirit over that transition.
So once again, will you miss living here after all these years here? It's kind of like bittersweet. Yeah. Like a new chapter's exciting, but it's like, oh, I loved Grass Valley and I loved Nevada City and all the people here.
Definitely, man. But someone gave me a good piece of travel advice where like you always leave before you're ready,
Ah,
and then you have a reason to go back. So
uh-huh.
I'm glad that I'm feeling that bittersweetness right now because it is like such a strong, like amazing home for us that we're gonna come back. We're gonna make like an effort every year to come visit.
Yeah, beautiful. So that's how I felt Montreal. I didn't want to really leave at that time, but it was just when I had to.
Yeah.
And now I'm like stoked to visit next month, and yeah, still excited for it. So let's talk about your art. What's
Okay.
your roots? Did you start with like your art's such a like a bridge between so many styles, from muralism and street art and realism, canvas painting with different mediums. Where do you learn how to paint so beautifully? What's your roots?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is like a super artistic town.
Uh huh.
So I was exposed to art like growing up, but never really connected with it until I got into graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was like, this is amazing. It's exciting. It's not like the boring art that I see in galleries on the street. It's like my friends are doing it. There's like an element of rebellion
It's
and it's
illegal.
illegal. It was like the right time of my life to get into art through that medium.
Uh huh.
And so
What was your tag name?
I went through a number, but yeah, Antic, Tilos,
Uh huh.
probably had like a few more in Santa Fe. Just, you go through letters. Certain letters have like a certain like essence and familiarity, and you know, like D's were really hard for me. So yeah, drop that. S's were super fun.
Uh huh.
I would kind of just filter through names until like the letters really connected. It was more about that than the actual meaning of the name.
What
But
was your inspiration to become a writer?
um,
Like,
it
did you
was
see a
just like
movie or mags or just seeing it on the streets?
seeing it on the streets. Some kids that I looked up to were doing it, and then my friends, we all got into it at the same time. And then it was like a snowball effect. I like wanted to learn more, and then started watching movies. Like remember getting Style Wars and just like
Uh huh.
watching that movie so many times and feeling like just this surge of excitement of like wanting to go paint,
Uh huh.
seeing other people doing it like on a large scale and like kind of define society and like having this subculture. It felt so much more alive than like art class in school or gallery painting. So
Right.
that was my gateway. And then of course like it's it's illegal and expensive because you're not getting paid.
Uh huh. And you gotta buy the cans if you're not stealing them.
Yeah, that's the expensive part. And so yeah, slowly I started getting more into like selling canvas works and then realized that, oh, I enjoy this too. And then yeah, eventually went to art school. I transferred out of another college into art school, and at that point I was just like, I am a full-time artist. This is my life's purpose.
What was the program at which school was that?
I went to Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I met my wife Maggie.
What was
Although
the program?
it was just painting.
Fine arts?
Yeah.
Visual arts?
The school I went to before I wasn't like really happy in, and I didn't have a lot of energy for the assignments, but like anything art related, I just had infinite energy. I could like stay up all night and make whatever I was working on, and we were painting trains out there, and it was just like that's what felt most alive. And I think when I was unhappy and realizing that's where my energy was most supported, that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a full-time artist.
Uh-huh. How many years did you do the art schooling part?
For 3 years.
Okay. Was it expensive seeing that you're in the United States?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like,
Are you in debt for the rest of your life now?
I'm very lucky and privileged. My folks paid for it, and I got some scholarships, so I came out unscathed. But
Amazing.
yeah, like my wife though, she just paid off her student debt,
Mm.
10 plus years later. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, it was great, but I also don't necessarily think it's the best option because
Mm.
it definitely sets a lot of people back, and they don't prepare you for like generating income in your field of art. It's
Right. Here's how you paint, but good luck on figuring out how to sell it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And plus, now you got this like 100G debt
yeah,
that basically you're a slave for the rest of your life to the system.
yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible. I also went to school for arts, but in Canada, it's like a lot cheaper. So I
As
was,
it should be.
yeah, I was able to pay my student loan in like 5, 10 years, like $100 a month. Just paying $100 a month. Then after 10 years, it was pretty much done.
Yeah,
So more forgiving out there.
yeah.
So schooling taught you what? Like realism? What did schooling taught you that you couldn't just learn on your own? Or perhaps you could have learned on your own, but perhaps it sped up the process.
Yeah, I think it sped up the process. We were doing things like still lives and not necessarily what I was most excited by, but just an understanding of light and shadow. And yeah, they showed me like different methodologies that sped up the process for sure. Some like human anatomy and just how to render like the human form.
Mm-hmm.
Art schools are a little antiquated, they don't teach what's like cutting edge in today's culture. They're like, all right, at least my school is like this. It's like, okay, this is, how you paint an apple on a tablecloth.
Yeah. This is what art's supposed to be and the structure that we've taught for so long. And it's not like, let's break parameters and find something new or get trippy, depending on the teacher too.
Yeah. My teachers were flexible enough where I would be like, listen, I want to paint something outside. Can I get credit to paint a mural?
Mm-hmm.
And they would be like, yeah, okay. You can't bring it into the final critique, but yeah, go ahead and do that. So I was blazing my own trail within that system and, doing like coffee shop shows. And I was so hungry at that time that I was like, I'm going to be making money while I'm in art school to pay for my life and my apartment. And I was like ready to be a professional artist as soon as I was in art school.
So you were already making money from art while going to school?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I didn't do that. I was like, can't wait to finish school so instead of getting grades, I can get payment. Because, grades is not helping too much right now. That's awesome.
My wife bought that painting that you were checking out earlier, the skull one.
Okay, yeah.
She bought that off of me in art school.
That's beautiful.
She was one of my first... Yeah, for $300.
Wow, that's great. And now it's in the family.
Yeah, it's her piece. It's in the studio, but it's her piece technically.
Well, I'm sure she lets you use it too. So. What mediums did you learn, and what mediums do you continue using? Are you always oil, acrylic, a mix?
I'm doing both. This one is acrylic. Large scale, I like working with acrylics.
Okay.
On canvas, I prefer acrylics. The tooth of it, I don't know. Each medium has its superpower, and I feel like working large scale on canvas with acrylics makes sense for me.
Yeah.
But then on like more smooth panels, oil just feels way better. And so anything that's on wood grain now, I'm doing with oils.
Okay.
And then for large scale murals, I'll mostly be doing house paint, acrylic paint.
Yeah.
But I'll like incorporate some spray paint here and there.
So the big murals is usually mostly paint.
Like house paint?
Like, brushwork, not spray paint.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, isn't that, I know, like as a spray painter, I'm like, whoa, that sounds a lot more difficult and slower.
But you pulled it off at the Beatles Ashram.
I brought spray paints to the Beatles Ashram. Like,
okay.
I did.
I thought that was brush.
Well, yeah, it was big bucket brush stuff to do fill-ins, but I did smuggle in some cans from, I think I flew in from Canada, and I smuggled in like 6 cans between me and my girlfriend at the time, and to do some line work and tighten it up. But yeah, like to be up on a ladder, like doing like fat brush fillings was like, oh my God, this is so much slower, but also interesting and fun. And yeah, it was a vibe.
It's tough. Like sometimes I'm up on a ladder with like my brush, my palette. I might even need like a spray bottle or some medium to make it go smoother. Then I've got a photo reference and I'm trying to stay on the ladder. And like, it's such a juggling act that it feels pretty precarious.
Yeah, you need some Inspector Gadget extra arms to, or like some kind of like Shiva or, extra arms to hold all the things.
I
You got to
wish
make up the
I,
invention. You got all these
yeah.
like custom racks with all these boxes and stuff. Maybe you can
Yeah,
make
Shiva
some,
arms.
yeah, some Dr. Octopus situation.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
Do a
dope.
mold of my arm so it looks like proportional and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
adjustable fingers.
Oh, yeah. So it looks like, that's just how you were born.
Yeah.
You paint a lot on wood. Why is that? Tell me about painting on wood. You make your own frames and
Yeah.
canvases.
Yeah, I've been making my own panels for a long time, like over a decade. I like that because I can hunt for the specific wood grain, and I'll go into Home Depot and just like rifle through their stacks of 4x8 sheets of plywood and set them all up in a row and be like, yes, no, 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 yes, maybe. And
Wow.
then,
So you're like a wood expert now.
not an expert, but like
you know what you want,
an
at least.
enthusiast. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's not so much about the type, like the origin of the wood. I mostly just work with birch because that's really accessible and affordable. And I really like the contrast in the wood grain. It goes like dark to light, a bit more pronounced and spaced out than some of the other trees. So I work a lot with birch, but I'm always looking for like, maybe the knot in the wood where it's placed interestingly, and then I'll paint a piece where someone's like pointing into that knot in the wood, and that's like this ripple effect, or maybe someone's sitting in that knot in the wood, and like it becomes this collaboration with the wood grain.
Yeah.
So it kind of takes the pressure off. It's like wood is already got its own vibe, its own story, its own soul.
Yeah.
And I'm just like in communication with it on my best day. Some days I'm just like, whatever, it doesn't matter the color. Or it doesn't matter the grain. I just want the right color.
Yeah.
And I'm like not really responding to the grain.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of my best pieces are when it's really grain specific and I'm like, I'm whispering to the wood. I'm like trying
Yeah. That's like the
feel it out.
literal definition of organic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so cool. So some of them you're listening to the wood and letting the wood dictate what flows from it. Others you're like, I don't care so much what you gotta say, Mr. Wood. I'm gonna do my thing, and I'll still let your beauty poke through certain areas of my paintings, but this one's
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, we're in a relationship,
Compromise.
Sometimes I don't feel heard and I'm like, shut up, wood, like, let me just speak. And other times, the wood takes the center stage and I'm just supporting it.
Yeah. So what does that do to your paintings? Like, does that make it more special or different, or, what is this thing with the wood? Does it like define your art? Is there other artists that use the wood like you do, or you do it in your own way?
Yeah, there's other artists that work with it. Audrey Kawasaki was one of like the first artists that I was like, damn, this is like the feeling. And she was like, yeah, the gateway into that world. But I would hope that the way I work with it is in a unique way. That's what I strive for. Especially the way that like the figures integrate with it or respond to that direction of grain.
Yeah, like how important is the wood in your paintings? Obviously, not every one of your paintings is a wood interactive piece, but would you say that's part of what defines your art, or it's just one of the tricks or things you go about it?
Yeah, it's not the only aspect of what I love to do, but it's been a huge part of like the feeling that I'm trying to communicate. And yeah, one of the like messages that I want with my art is to be connected to nature and in communion with the natural world, and having these transparent figures over the wood, where the wood grain becomes their essence and their skin tones are accented by these grains and imperfections in the wood. Like, to me, that drives home this message of like we are nature. This illusion that we're separate from nature is an illusion. Like So I think that is an important part of my message. But like this piece that we're sitting in front of, or some of the work that I do, is almost done in a similar way where I'll find a wall that's deteriorating. Like this piece is inspired by a wall in India.
Right.
And so I almost look at those decrepit, dilapidated, like deteriorating walls as a piece of wood.
Yeah.
It's like
Like
how
the texture.
exactly.
Yeah. And then you harmonize with either the wall or the deteriorating wall, and both in vibe, but also in the color palette that you choose. See, like wood's kind of like orangey, yellowy. So then you're not gonna go to a totally different spectrum. You're gonna kind of like vibe with it. So that not dictates the direction of your art. Once again, it's a collabo with the wood, but like it softens up the vibe in general, I feel.
Yeah.
So it's like you're vibrating with nature.
Exactly.
It's got a warmness to it, a life almost.
Yeah. And it like I said, takes the pressure off because you're not starting with a white canvas. You're jumping into something that already exists with a personality, and then you kind of take it from there. And sometimes I have pieces of wood that I've sat on for like over 5 years that are amazing pieces of wood, and I can't wait to paint them, but they're such interesting grain that I'm like waiting for the right idea to be sparked.
It's almost like more pressure because like, ooh, this wood's really good.
Yeah, and you're never gonna find another one like it. So, like, what's unique about wood too, especially with the advent of like AI and like things just getting made really quick, is like with the wood or these walls, they're like true one-of-a-kind works of art because they're responding to a one-of-a-kind piece of wood or something that can't be like necessarily duplicated in the same way. Like,
yeah, that's awesome. I love it. It's very, once again, very organic and flowy. What about the subject matters? To me, your art is quote unquote visionary, spiritual, mystic, maybe perhaps psychedelic, in a non-traditional, super colorful rainbow explosion like psychedelic would be. But like, what is psychedelic other than the spiritual experience of the other side of reality? What are you painting about?
Yeah, I'm painting about the human experience, the tapping into that spiritual realm, inspired by psychedelics, inspired by meditation, inspired by my own experience, my inner world, inspired by dreams. I really love the liminal space, meaning like the space in between two worlds. So like if visionary art is like 5 hits of acid, my art is like a half a hit.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of exist with one foot in reality and another foot in this very like visceral and compelling world, but you're not fully like in that space. You're not just seeing rainbow fractals, but there's almost like this integration in between those two places.
Right.
And I find that a lot when like I'm dreaming too, and a lucid dreaming practice is like also very psychedelic, and you feel rooted in certain aspects of like this world, but then you also have the freedom to play and like, create things in that realm or bend the laws of physics like you're in the Matrix and fly around. And I love that liminal space.
That's awesome. I didn't know that definition of that in between. It's almost like, if the full-on visionary experience is DMT and you're not even seeing reality anymore, you're in the other dimension, your art's more like Changa, where it's like you're seeing reality, but everything's fractalizing and getting all rearranged in a divine expression.
Totally.
That's why you can't see the faces of a lot of your characters.
Yeah. And I was getting into Kundalini yoga for a while and doing these like white tantric practices where you're just staring at someone's face for hours at a time. Wow. And certain things start shifting, similar to when you're on psychedelics, or you start to pick up on more subtle energies, and this like attachment to our identity and this form starts to dissolve a little bit, and you start looking at the person you're staring at or contemplating like your own identity, like, wait, what is set in stone? Is it impermanent? Is it the thing that we really need to identify with,
Uh-huh.
or is there an energy behind that facade that, connects all of us or animates us or brings us into harmony? So
Hmm. Do you have like a spiritual path that's taught you that? Like a perhaps not a religion, but you said you meditate. Is it always Kundalini yoga, or what is your way of exploration of the spiritual essence that we are?
yeah, I kind of feel a bit like a spiritual orphan,
Uh-huh.
and like I feel it in me, like this connection, but I was I wasn't raised in that world. I was raised around a lot of people exploring different things. So I feel like my journey has been kind of that, that new age exploration where like, sure, why not? I'll like, you know, sit in a white tantric kundalini like retreat for 3 days, or I'll, you know, take ayahuasca, or I'll try out lucid dreaming. I'm sort of like feeling what resonates. But yeah, lately, Maggie and I took a yoga teacher training course and started tuning more into Ayurveda and
Nice.
Vedanta,
Uh-huh.
and honestly, that has been like one of the more grounding things for me.
Mm.
It's like there's a lot of spiritual trappings, in our community, a lot of things that maybe are attractive but not the end goal, and you can kind of get lost in this other realm or identify with something that's spiritual and think
Yeah.
that like it's guiding you somewhere, but it might actually be limiting. And yeah, there's something about Vedanta that just feels like non-competitive, like
Yeah.
not ego-driven. You're not trying to become anything. You're
Yeah.
trying to relax into the wholeness that you actually are.
Yeah.
As yeah,
Perhaps it's not the appearance of spiritual necessarily. It's just being whatever spirit is.
totally.
Yeah, because there's certainly a lot of spiritually appearing things that are not quite so spiritual. Kind of like ruins it sometimes.
Yeah.
But so it's good to have a practice. What about psychedelics? Do you have a preferred medicine, or have you explored much with any of those paths? Is it something you enjoy? Is it too intense? Like you seem like a very chill, centered dude, and perhaps like a radical, you know, psychedelic explosion might be a little bit too much, or maybe you're like a
Yeah.
hardcore tripper. I don't know. Hi, we take a little break from our super awesome podcast show so that I, your artist friend Chris Dyer, can tell you about my brand, Positive Creations, which I have been doing for 20 years. And with this project, I share my art through different products, maybe beautiful clothes that you can use in normal life or in the festival world, or skateboards that you can ride, or games like puzzles, or kendamas and flow toys, or use slip mats for your records. Basically, a lot of functional things that just add fun and magic into your existence. So I hope you like it. Check out positivecreations.net. Positivecreations.net. That was not a glitch. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Blessings.
Yeah, I'm already such a visual person. Like if I'm closing my eyes going to bed, like I'm seeing shit,
Oh, yeah.
and I don't need a lot to go there. So honestly, I've blasted off. I've gone into ayahuasca and LSD and mushrooms, and they each have a certain energy. Like you're saying, maybe there's a favorite. Um, I feel like out of all of them, mushrooms kind of feels the most kindred,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it doesn't feel like too abrasive or like that slingshot into a different realm, but feels very grounded and earthy and just something that my body responds to. But these days, honestly, just with juggling life and a career, I don't find myself like, you know, diving deep into those realms as much. Every now and then it's nice to have like a little factory reset, but it's not like a monthly recreational thing.
Yeah.
It's with more intention and a little bit more sparse.
You're telling me you already see enough. Do you feel that's some kind of ESP or psychic ability or clairvoyance that came with the coding of your avatar?
That'd be cool. I don't I don't think so. I don't identify as those things, but just yeah, visually, like, I'm a daydreamer. I'm someone that I simultaneously notice, like, all the exquisite details of things, but can also be blinded because I'm in my own daydream some of the time. So I don't think I have any like ESP powers or things like that. I'm just a visual person. But
You got sensitivities of whatever we want to call it.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. And hopefully we're all growing our extrasensory powers to a more spiritual calibration as hopefully the world's becoming more spiritual and a higher frequency. Hopefully,
Yeah,
is what
hopefully.
what I'd like to see. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping for that in me. I really don't have a lot of psychic abilities, but I do feel I got something special, and I can see it through my art. So I'm like, gotta not, you know, underestimate my own power, even though it's hard to
Totally.
define these things.
Yeah. Yeah, you seem like a bridge in between realms, but yeah, you're like,
But I don't see anything right now. I don't see your aura, and
right.
I don't see the future. So that would be more like traditional psychic abilities. But I must have something.
Yeah.
Same with you. Like there's something special in expressing something that resonates with the souls of thousands of people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think like with my art too, you know, I like when my art affects someone that's maybe never, done any of these more psychedelic things, or they're just an unassuming like passerby on the street and they see a mural and they still feel connected with it, but they're not necessarily of that culture. They can still feel it. Like that's who I hope to cross pollinate my art to, is just like be also a bridge in between like different demographics and ways of life, and yeah, be able to just like relate to someone in the Midwest who's just like out there on a farm or something, but they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, when I sit in nature, I feel like I'm dissolving into like the space around me, or that feels where I'm most at home.
What is reality? Like, what is this dimension we're in right now, this physical world, in the contrast of the spiritual world that you're bridging or whispering to your viewers? What is that place? What is this place? What is everything? I know it's a big question, but
Yeah.
like, do you have opinions or beliefs or perspectives about what's happening right now?
Man, I know so little. I'm just trying to make sense of it all. I know that what we're experiencing has some truth to it. I also know it has a lot of illusion. Yeah, Satya, Mithya, it's got an essence to it where, like, yes, we're all one, but we're also in this dualistic realm and there's separation, but some of that separation is an illusion because we're incarnated into these two separate bodies. So yeah, it's hard to like say what reality is, because we're perceiving two different things in two different ways,
And who knows what you're perceiving? I got no idea what's inside your head and what you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell you what I'm seeing. You're trying to tell me what you're seeing through some of the visuals.
Right. And
But
that's the beauty of visual art.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Would you consider yourself a visionary artist? I know that's like a term, a scene, a world, a gathering of perhaps artists, but I see your work at music festivals, and to me, your art certainly fits the definition of visionary art. How do you feel about the whole category, and how you have any place in it, or is it something that you see it from the outside? How you observe it?
Yeah, I always have a certain feeling about genres and almost feeling like it's a pigeonhole.
Uh-huh.
So I definitely like have been a part of the visionary art realm and like see my work as being influenced and adding to some degree to that genre. But I also love, you know, the surrealists and, you know, Renaissance painters and the graffiti writers and street artists. And so it's like the art that I want to see in the world is a fusion between all of my favorite different realms. And I feel like, you know, every now and then I'll bridge those realms in a nice way, which hopefully defies the genre, but it's also very much informed by those places. Like, you don't create art in a vacuum. So, like, I'm definitely aware of the visionary art genre, and it's influenced a lot of my geometry. Like, this is a flower of life, you know, but it's remixed in a way that is more resonant with me. It's like not this, you
Circular,
know,
it's more like, like
yeah,
straight lined.
yeah, and like the flower of life has got this almost completeness to it and permanence to it. It's like this is like the yantra. This is like
Yeah.
the final form. But I love the like creation and destruction of it. So this is like this fleeting moment of harmony where the figure is like they are the flower of life internally. Their energy is expressing that, but it's also being felt in this fleeting moment where they're not like permanently in the space, but are they coming? Are they going?
It's not rigid and it's blowing like leaves in the wind.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, something I really like about your art and why I resonate is that you combine spiritual, mystic, quote unquote, visionary art with street art, you know, as myself, you know, you can do this art that's perhaps dreamy and ethereal and airy and, you know, of this place that we dream to one day unite with, which some people might say is like unrealistic and, you know, but at the same time, you're in the streets. You're painting like with people and cars zooming by and noises and maybe sometimes in a little bit of danger in a strange country that you're not from. So there's like a total groundedness in like the physical reality that I personally really appreciate, you know, grounded yet dreamy. And I think we should dream and look into all the possibilities of realities while still having a foot on planet Earth that we are experiencing. How do you see this combination that you bring forth? How is it having a foot in these two different, almost opposing looking art scenes?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you just said. It's like nice to be grounded in that space while painting. There's a certain presence that comes with it. Just you have to be aware, you know, because in a way you're also vulnerable. You're like facing something like engrossed in your work, but the world is happening behind you and things are, you know, not normally a threat, but you know, people are driving by shouting things or, you know, someone's selling something right next to you or like, you know, running down the block. And I end up not listening to music in the streets because I'm just like, I'm here, I'm in this unfamiliar space and I just want to be like present in all of the stimulus and feel into it.
Wow, that's admirable because I like to block that out. I'm like, this is too much energy. Some places have a dark energy and I'm trying to like not let it spin me out of my balance. So if I put music, at least I can center on something inside myself.
Yeah, I could see that too. Every now and then I'll do that if I'm like high up on a lift and I sort of feel like removed from the city bustle. But, you know, I've been, even for walls that I've had permission on, like I've been kicked off of those walls due to some miscommunication or, you know, maybe there's someone like, you know, shooting up close by or like I've had to clean up human feces like next to my lifts and you're in visceral humanity, the good, the bad, the ugly. I've had dance parties with strangers next to my pieces. Like I've bought, you know, jewelry stolen from Macy's, like next to a wall. Just life is like right there in a way that I'm normally never like that.
You're usually not on that corner hanging out.
No, I'm in the studio, like in my own little like bubble making art. So I love that it brings me into like the collective reality.
The quote unquote real world that a lot of people have to live in and suffer through, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to see it in real life, being like, damn, you can't run away from it. You're putting yourself in the middle of the,
Yeah.
stressful situations purposely.
Yeah. But it's sweet. It like serves as a community um, grounding point where I'm sure you've heard a lot of like wild stories from strangers, or witnessed people having a moment with your art and stopping in an otherwise like hectic day, and it becomes like this place of conversation and connection. And especially when I'm traveling, I love painting murals because it's like that's what I'm there for, is connection.
Uh-huh.
In the States, sometimes it's like, okay, I'm just trying to get this wall done because it's my job and I'm getting paid for it and I want it to move efficiently. But
Uh-huh.
if I'm traveling, it's like, yeah, I want to stop and talk and like learn about, your life here in this place that I've never been to, and make something for that community that feels like it's purposeful and a gift into that space.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like, I don't want to paint like a white person in India, It's
Uh-huh.
just, it's not the place for that. Like I'm
Paint them.
gonna paint them in their space, and I think that type of cultural um, communication is like, it's sweet. That's where friendships are made.
It's like honoring them. It's like showing them their divinity. Uh, yeah, that's beautiful. What's the contrast between being a studio painter that spends a lot of introverted time alone in the studio doing canvases, and all of a sudden you throw yourself in the middle of the streets of a third world country, overwhelmed by the senses and having to talk to a bunch of people all of a sudden? Is that difficult, or is that something pleasurable? I don't know. Why do you do
Yeah.
this?
I don't know. I love it. For the street food, maybe.
But what about the diarrhea that comes right after?
You got to initiate somehow.
Yeah, right. Boost that immune system one way or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a little overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but I I also, as an artist, I feel like I'm in control of my own suffering. Like I don't have a boss that is telling me to do shit I don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm in a situation and I'm unhappy, I'm like, okay, I put myself in here.
Yeah.
Like,
And you
and
can duck
so
out at any point.
exactly, I can take a break. I can rearrange my schedule. I can clear the next gig afterwards because I'm like, I'm just depleted and not feeling it. Um, so I love that freedom, but yeah, it's nice to blame someone else sometimes. So I have to remember, like, no, like I'm in charge of my suffering. Like I can like take a break. I can have that balance because it is nice. If I do a studio show for a gallery, I'll be in the studio whirlwind for so long that by the end of it, I am craving to be outside painting a
Right.
mural.
Uh-huh.
And vice versa. If I'm like tired and beaten down by the sun and
Yeah,
like
being out
murals,
traveling for months, it's like I'm ready for
yeah,
some home groundation, alone time.
exactly. If you're
Yeah.
sleeping in a different bed every like other day of the week and
That's
eating
where we're
different
at these
food,
days.
yeah, you guys are probably a little homesick.
We're
But that's
ready.
great.
Yeah.
Then once you're there, you're going to be more grateful that you're back at home, and
Mm-hmm.
give it a month and you'll be back on the road.
Yeah. Stoked to sleep in my own bed tomorrow morning. Yeah, well, we're leaving tonight, but it's a red eye. But tell me about the different vibes of painting a paid mural gig and something you're doing for free just for fun.
Yeah. I mean, usually the one for free for fun has a certain flow state that just produces better art. You're
Mm-hmm.
not checking in with this super ego that's your client, where they're like, oh, I want these colors, or I want it to look like my friend. And you're like, okay, got to make sure their eyeballs are spaced properly so it looks
Uh-huh.
like their friend. And
Yeah.
there's just like, there's more check-ins with myself, and sometimes sometimes a client will pull something out of me that I otherwise wouldn't do. So it's kind of refreshing, and I'm like, cool, I just practiced uh, a subject that I never would have otherwise done on my own, and I actually like it, and I'm gonna bring this into my next piece that I'm doing for myself. So sometimes client work is cool like that. It's a permission slip to do something new. But yeah, a lot of times it just goes a lot slower. And yeah, it feels more like a service than like an expression.
But you get paid for the job and then your bills are met. So that's something good too.
Yeah.
You need to do both.
Yeah, that's part of self-care too, is making money.
Yeah, so you can eat good healthy food and have a good studio and home situation. Um,
Yeah.
One of the first times I found your art was through the Beatles Ashram in India. I saw pictures of it. Olivia Jane, our common friend, showed me what you were painting out there, what she was painting out there. And when I saw that, I was like, I gotta go to India. This is 2019. I was turning 40 years old. I was like, okay, I waited all my life. This is the perfect excuse to go out to Beatles Ashram and capture something. And I was lucky to get one of those meditation domes that you and Olivia have already painted. I think there's like one empty left by now.
Yeah.
So there's only 4 or so of them. And
I know, we're part of a little crew.
I know.
The egg crew.
The meditation dome crew.
Yeah.
Woo! But it's probably one of the funnest things I've ever painted in my life. It was unpaid, of course. It's like there was a struggle to get the spot. Big thanks to Julian Vedas for communicating with the guards at that spot. But you own that place. You keep on walking everywhere. It's like, oh, there's another one, another miles there, another miles there. You got so many pieces out there. How many times have you been there? How many times have you been to India? What's your relationship with this country, with that spot? What's the story?
Yeah. I've been to India 5 times now. And some of the trips I've maxed out my 6-month visa.
Okay.
I think collectively I've spent over 2 years, around 2 years there. I first went out to India after meeting a couple at Lightning in a Bottle. I hadn't even graduated from art school, but I went to my first festival and I was like, this is amazing. I want more of this in my life. It kind of itched that same scratch as graffiti culture. I was like, there's all these live painters. They're out here, living their expression in community, and it just felt alive and amazing. And I didn't have a live painting gig there, so I just took out some of my art and was vending it on this tree. And I met this couple that was about my age, and they bought some artwork from me. One of them was Indian, one of them was American. And then I saw them again the year after at LIB, but that year I was live painting, and they were like, hey, we're starting this art residency in India. Will you, consider coming out and just painting at our venue? We're a waterman's village, and we just want this creative spirit that's here at Lightning in a Bottle. We want that out at our venue in India. And I was graduating that year, and I ended up calling them out of the blue. I was like, you know what? I've thought a lot about it. I want to come out there. I'm in Seattle now, but I'm down to book a ticket out to India whenever.
Which part of India?
In Goa, which is sort of, you've been to Goa. Yeah, it's the bohemian.
Beach party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a global destination, and also where India vacations. So they were there, and when I called them, they were like, oh, that's funny. We're flying into Seattle in 2 hours.
Okay, nice.
So I was like, sweet, let's meet up in person. And we met in person, and that felt like a sign. And then we talked about all the details, and in a couple months I was out in India and was their first artist in resident. I didn't know that I was going to be the first, but they had this vision, and we were just kind of making it up as we went along. And I just loved it out there. Met so many cool travelers, met so many cool locals, and decided that I wanted to keep coming back. But I was like, here, I'll help facilitate. And so went back to LIB, told all my friends, I was like, you gotta come here, you gotta come here. Let's create this community and this link between live painters and the art residency. And we started getting more international and local artists. And some of those people, some of the Indian artists were street artists. And up until that point, I was like, I didn't know what the law was in India. I was like, I don't want them to catch me and, you know, cut off my hand, or like, I didn't know what the rules were. So I was just like, graffiti is like illegal in the States, you know.
I don't want to get in trouble in this country.
Yeah. And then I started rolling with these Indian street artists, and they were so relaxed and casual and just day painting and asking people that were definitely not the wall owners, but they were getting the head bobble of permission, like, yes, like, go on. Like, if it was a chai walla, they would like be like, okay, that was like approval enough. And so
seems like India is so lawless because it's a third world country. Everybody's like broke. People cheat and make things happen, like those cables going into stores where everybody's just stealing electricity from each other, and you know, you just make it work one way or another. So it seems like rolling up to a wall is not too difficult. It's like people stand around and they look at you go, it's like, cool, more art. Why not?
Right? A lot of like smiles and like thumbs up, and people were way more into it than the States. So immediately I felt this like, this new excitement of like, yeah, anything's possible. We can paint anywhere. And then we met some Russian street artists, and we all started hanging out and painting walls together, and almost like making themes and going somewhere and like doing like, you know, productions with our own little thing, but like, okay, we're doing like a mystic theme here or a different theme there. And so kind of got some courage and momentum with those guys. And through the art residency, I met a couple. At the time, they were dating, Pan, Trinity Das, and...
You got more water?
Yeah, that'd be great. And Kiri Meizumi, and they had really laid the roots at the Beatles Ashram. They were the first to like paint multiple pieces and went through the whole process of like bribing the guards to let them through with the paint.
Who are these people again?
Pan, Trinity Das.
Okay.
I don't know what he goes by these days. I don't know if he's still making art.
Art by Pan?
Yeah, Art by Pan.
Yeah.
And then Kiri Meizumi. And so they like had rapport with the guards. And I met them in Goa as part of the art residency. We had them live paint at an event. And they were like, you got to come up to the Beatles Ashram. We've been going there. It's dope. You would love it. I was like, sweet, I'll see you there in a few weeks. And so went up there, talked to the guards. I was like, hey, I'm meeting these guys. Like, can I go paint? And they were like, no. Like, we don't care who you're with. There's no painting. It's very illegal. Like, don't do that here.
Yeah, this is a tiger sanctuary now.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, gave me the tiger scare and like shooed me away. And then I waited for like 3 days until those guys got there. And then we all rolled up as a unit. Basically just got the green light from there. So from then on, I knew like Ranger Raju, who was there, sort of coordinating everything, and got on good terms with him. And he basically was like, whenever you want to paint, wherever you want to paint, go for it. And then it was like a party. We were there every day. I was painting a mural there every day.
Wow.
Like one a day for, you know, a full week before I took a break because I was so into it. Like that setting is so incredible. I mean, it is a tiger sanctuary. I didn't see any, but we saw peacocks and monkeys, and you're in the jungle, but you're still in civilization because of these structures, but they're not normal structures. There's meditation domes and these ornate Indian arches. And it was like a mashup of worlds that I'd never seen before.
Plus the history. Oh, the Maharishi and the Beatles.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yeah.
Just the energy of like transcendental meditation.
Yeah, all that concentrated consciousness is in the air still, even though it's been abandoned. The fact that it's abandoned and that the plants are taking over and everything's just like an ancient ruin, like oof. But it's not ancient, so you can paint it and not feel like you're painting on like a Mayan temple, which I would never do, you know?
Yeah, right. There's certain like sacred spots that feel off limits, but the Beatles Ashram, it's just
like
it's
the
so
50s,
unique.
60s. So
Yeah, and it's abandoned, and like there's already a lot of graffiti there anyway. So, to come in with more intention and more paint and be like, you know what, I'm gonna make something beautiful that almost brings in new life and do it intentionally where, you know, you're riffing off of the culture and reflecting it in a way that's inspiring to you and like the locals. It was cool. I would be in Rishikesh taking photos of different sadhus and babas and like asking if I could paint them, and then seeing them the next day and showing them the photos, and they would just light up and be like, "Whoa!" Like, I didn't know you were gonna do that with the photo. And then they would ask their friends to come over and be like, "Take some more photos."
You're making me look so special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
they're already so special they never saw it before because now they're seeing it through the filter of your creativity.
Yeah. And some sadhus didn't want anything to do with it. They're like, no, just like let me be. I'm not trying to get mixed up in anything that's a distraction from like their sole purpose. So
Yeah, they just want to exist and vibrate, and being idealized through an image might tickle their ego too much, perhaps.
exactly, yeah. So there's different relationships to it.
Uh-huh.
But there was just a strong feedback loop of like, all right, I want to paint a cow. Go out into Rishikesh, take a photo of a cow, and then like find the right wall where, there's a tree growing out of the wall, and there's like grasses that maybe the cow could be eating, and like have that cow in a site-specific location. So
Yeah.
it's not just a painting on a wall, but it's like a, it's an environment that's responding to the setting. It's like the wood grain. It's like you're listening to the space, and I'm gonna do a life-size figure that's sitting on the ground, like begging with a chai cup in his hand. It's like I just saw that in Rishikesh. Like,
Yeah.
why not reflect that?
Right.
We're
Well,
all expressions of the divine. Like, I'm gonna paint that guy too. That's just like the beggar.
Yeah.
But I want to do it in a way where he's sitting on the actual ground, so it feels like he's supposed to be there.
right. Hi, we take this little pause from our conversations for me to let you know that I got a brand new art book. This is my second art book, Shamanic Journey, that just came out with Last Gasp Publications. It's a 256-page book, full color, shiny, beautiful pages with full of my art, writing, stories, basically everything I've done in the last 13 years. And I worked really hard on this book. It took me months to lay out by myself, and obviously the art has been a labor of love of many years, and I've condensed it all in this beautiful book that now is available on positcreations.net. You can get a signed version, you can get an unsigned version for a little bit cheaper. And yeah, this won't run out of electricity. On this digital world where we gotta charge everything, or a solar flare could knock out the electricity of the world and you'd be like, whoa, where did all my Chris Dyer go? No, this runs on energy forever. You never gotta charge it, you never gotta water it. It'll always be there to give you new inspiration and art. And I've done this with a lot of love, and I hope that you will get a copy for your own personal library. And reflect yourself in it and make your own book and story of your life. But here's mine, and I hope you will enjoy it. positcreations.net. Thank you. That's awesome. That's true street art, if you ask me. Quote unquote, what street art's supposed to be, and interacting, and just for the joy of making it. Like, there's nothing you want to get out of it other than actually making it.
Yeah.
And seeing it and taking your picture perhaps and sharing it where you can.
Yeah.
And now it's a tourist destination. People go into this Beatles Ashram and they take pictures, and your signature's there, so it takes your art further in an international level. It's even been on TV shows, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it made it into a Bollywood movie.
Oh yeah.
Which was super fun. Yeah, Bollywood's just turned up in so many ways that it was like, I saw it on a flight leaving India.
No way, that must be so funny.
Yeah. I I had another piece that made it onto a TV show, but most of the Beatles Ashram stuff, it's like, yeah, it's lived a life of its own. This is actually a piece that was inspired by that series.
Uh-huh.
And a couple from Utah went on a trip and saw it and reached out to me, and they were like, we want to commission something inspired by that space.
Uh-huh.
But like, this might be the first time that I've like actually made money off of that series. And
Uh-huh.
that was, that was like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know like how art is gonna exist once it's out of your hands. Like,
Right.
it had this effect on this couple, and they reached out to me, and like, I don't know any of that until they come back to me and close the loop and say, hey, we had this special day, especially with this piece, and we want it in our house now.
Yeah, it's so funny that it's like a canvas painting of a mural, and you had to start by painting a decrepit, tarnished, moldy, cracking wall to start with, and then go and paint your paintings. So it's like two paintings in one.
Exactly.
It would have been almost like, it's easier to do this in your studio, in your own comfort and parameters, but it would have also been cool to perhaps roll up to that couple's house, fucked up their wall, and then, done the paint. That would have been like another approach for it. That would have been fun, yeah?
I know. I've thought about that, like creating non-archival backgrounds where you just get shitty paint and throw it out in like the woods for like 4 years, and then put some more paint on it and let it like bake under the sun and like get washed away by the rain. And then, after 10 years of just getting beat up by the world, then like you bring it back in the studio and paint it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
It's hard to recreate the magic of like a wall in India. It's
Right.
like, it's really unique. You get people spitting pan like and dripping down the wall, and the Hindu or the Hindi like
Tags.
just scripts, for advertisements
right.
or things. Like, there's just so many layers of history
Right.
that coexist.
That's cool. Do you have plans of going back, or have you been back recently to continue that? Did you ever get not bored, but like, I've done that enough. What's next? Or do you always hungry for more of that?
I think I'm always hungry for more India.
Yeah. Why you love India so much?
I don't know. Maybe it was the time of my life where I went out there, but I feel like I grew up a lot there and found myself not in the way that I thought I would.
Uh-huh.
I was expecting a spiritual journey in India, but not in the way that I found it. But honestly, a lot of it was through street art and just like art for art's sake, and meeting people in a way that just felt like, very human and down to earth. And India is so different that it always scrambles my brain in a healthy way. I'm like, there's so many ways to live. It's not just this American way that I've been indoctrinated into, but they pull it off in their own beautiful maximalist expression with different beliefs and foods. And it just makes me feel like, okay, like we can create whatever reality we want. There isn't one way. And like, and then getting more into their spiritual beliefs and like their Ayurveda, their way of like healing the body. It's kept coming back into my life, but I'm also like, there's so many other amazing places on the planet that I don't want to just only go to India when I travel. Like, I want to explore. I've never been to South America, which is crazy. I'm like, that's so close comparatively.
Right. Like, I guess like the question would be like, what's the next Beatles ashram? What's the next abandoned gem in a random jungle that I could be the first explorer to find it and be like, I can paint this, and like, do you ever see pictures of like old castles or palaces that are like falling apart in Europe, and people do beautiful paintings on it? You're just like, wow, it's so cool. So it's almost like the art is both the art of the finding of that perfect ruin that's allowed to paint on, and then on top of it, the actual art.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I actually was out in Paris for a street art festival, and a buddy of mine helped connect me to an abandoned castle, and we went in there and spent the day painting. And
Nice.
It did feel very similar to that, like, similar but different. But yeah, I'm definitely open to the next thing. I don't know what that is. You probably have a better sense of the world with all your travels. There's like a graffiti or street art haven right now.
I liked Cuba, because like Cuba's like poor, so there's a lot of like abandoned things. Like there was this one abandoned school turned into a do-it-yourself skate park.
Nice.
So the kids had taken it over, and there's no skate parks in Cuba. There's no skateboard shops. There's like no skate scene. So they were building this do-it-yourself spot, and there's tons of walls and an empty swimming pool, and it was just really crappy. But they were making like there's no rooftop, and it was just like dangerous. And but it was like the kids were like building it, and we were there to like paint murals, and that was really fun. But yeah, there's tons, I guess. Like when I go to Mayan ruins, I'm like, oh man, I would love to paint this pyramid, but you can't touch that. Like that's too sacred almost.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Lots to explore in the world. Just traveling in general, so beautiful.
Yeah. There is that human itch though. We've been painting on walls like for as long as we have recorded history. It's
yeah, from the caveman days. It's the first artwork, if anything.
Yeah.
That we know of.
Yeah, I love that it's like, maybe there's a resurgence with, graffiti coming out of New York. But before then, there's been, outdoor murals and like graffiti in caves or paintings in caves. And
for the whole history of humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like stuff on our walls. You seem like you always got something to paint. Are you always motivated, or do you ever meet artist blocks? Like artists always ask me like, hey, like, I don't know how to inspire myself to paint. I don't know what to do to like get myself going. That's where I'm like, whoa, maybe art's not your thing. If you say you're an artist, but you're not inspired to paint. Do you ever meet artist blocks? And if you do, how do you kick yourself to keep on going? Or do you just accept yourself with periods of non-arting?
Yeah, if I like to just live life and get inspired naturally. So if I have an artist block, it tends to be because there's too much output and not enough input. And so there's a part of me where it's like, yeah, just live life and like get naturally re-inspired. But if there's like a show and a deadline and it's like, I ain't got time for that, I'll sometimes go through old sketchbooks, because I found like over the course of my life, there's certain themes that I just keep revisiting. And sometimes I'll be like so excited about this new idea and then realize like, oh my God, I was doing this like 10 years ago, but never fully realized it, but it's still a scribble in my like earlier sketchbook. So sometimes I'll like connect those dots and see what are the overarching themes of like who I am, because those feel like really good places to explore. If they naturally come up again and again, it's not a trend or a flavor of the week. It's something that I'm obviously like supposed to work with. So yeah, I'll tap into old sketchbooks. It's a balance. There's so much visual information in our world with social media. Like sometimes I'll be on social media getting inspired, but it can it can also feel like the type of inspiration that's just imitation. But sometimes imitation leads to your own evolution and innovation within your technique.
Right, taking it your own direction. Yeah, there's definitely artists that can inspire. Like for me, going to the Chambers Gallery this last couple of days to do my book launch, and you're surrounded by Mars One and Oliver Vernon and all these like masters, it's like humbling and like, oh my God, like this is so good. Like it almost makes me feel like not defeated, because it's not a competition and I'm not supposed to be better than anyone. I'm just supposed to be me. But at the same time, you feel like, at least, or I feel like there's a lot of work to be done. And either like I'll get like, damn, I'm doing terrible, or like, I'm so hungry to go and eat at like, give myself like 6 months in the studio and just fucking paint some masters to the next level.
Exactly. That's how I feel too. I'm like, I've been in it for a long time. But I feel like I'm also just starting. And that feeling of like there's a lot of work to do is
right.
It's that catch-22 with art is I never feel entirely satisfied with what I create. Like there's there's a level of acceptance that happens when I'm like, all right, this piece is finished. But there's also this insatiable thirst to like continue to express myself and like try out a new perspective of a similar theme and just keep addressing these like ideas, but with a fresh spirit that somehow feels like it's who I am in this moment.
Beautiful. Well, it's a great approach you got, and seems like you got a lot of great things over on the horizon, from moving, a new studio, new life, new projects, new explorations. Burning Man coming up so soon. What are you doing up there in Burning Man? Or just figuring it out as you go?
Yeah, just figuring it out. It wasn't on our agenda, so we're not doing any art installations. I don't even know if I want to book anything there because like with the move, it's already so exhausting that I think I just want to like
run around and play?
Yeah, run around, play, see some art, mostly visit with friends, because the saddest part about leaving Nevada City is like leaving all the friends. So there's a good crew that's going out there that I feel like I'll have quality time with, because we don't have any moving or packing to do. We'll just be in that little bubble in time.
Nice. Well, it sounds lovely. Is there some final words of wisdom that you would like to share with the viewers of the show? Like a lot of artists tune in, and you know, they're always seeing like what they can learn from all these artists that are on their way, you know, in their career, already manifesting beautiful things. And do you got any suggestions for them?
Yeah. I mean, what I love about art is it's hard to follow a certain formula. And every artist that I'm really inspired by has kind of blazed their own trail, and they've been rewarded by that. And like seeing what you do, bridging this world between skating and spirituality and visionary art, and you know, having a podcast which connects you to your artist community and being able to share that, it's like it's such a unique life path, and you've been rewarded for it. But if you went to the Chambers Project and you're like, oh man, I gotta be like Mars One, and you just like follow in his footsteps and try and like recreate what he's done, it's like it's not gonna work because you're not him.
Right.
So there's like this really sweet combination of things that have never been combined because it hasn't been done by you or me or any other artist. There's like a unique mashup of all of our life experiences and interests. And I would say if you're an artist, like tune into your unique combination of influences and experiences, and work with that, because I think you'll be more rewarded than just trying to follow a formula. Or you know, it's good to take classes and courses and like learn some stuff and speed up the process. Or you know, if you find a mentor and that's doing something that you want to be doing, that might like help you learn some things quicker. But I also think just sinking into your life purpose it's a unique journey.
Right. The goal is not to be as good as somebody else per se. The goal is to be the best version of you, whatever that is, because you're a unique fractal of expression. But yeah, we certainly can look up at other people being beautiful fractals of their own self and being like, I want to like, you know, shine brighter if possible.
Definitely.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your words of wisdom, man. Thank you so much, Miles, for having me over here in your beautiful studio. And thank you guys for watching our episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Make sure to like, share, comment, etc. And we'll see you next episode. Blessings! Woo! Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude, that was fun.
Yeah, that was cool, huh?
Yeah.
I love doing these. Next episode, Troy Lovegate.
And I don't know if it's because I'm older now, but I don't really see that much actual, illegal street art out in the city anymore. It seemed like everybody got into murals and into a profession and into galleries, and we're like, see ya, to the like roots of it, which I find sad. I've always stayed there. I like the wildness of it. Like when you're on the street painting a piece, you have to be quick, and there's all the other things happening. You're not really completely paying attention to what you're doing, and I think it creates more of a unique atmosphere for making work. Like you could be arrested, you could engage with somebody that's angry at you or somebody that's excited, or random events occur around this thing. It makes a whole night like a little adventure, you know?
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.